Good morning, everyone. Well, I was just outside. Every morning I got to drive up and open the gate at 7 a.m. And I've done that. But before I go out, I have my coffee and breakfast. The sun is not quite up yet, but it's almost. As we get further into summer, it'll be lighter and it'll be up by this time. But right now, it's still, I can see outside, but it's not bright, and we're not getting the experience of the sun. It's still cold. So I'm trying to warm back up after I was out. I had my jacket on, but unlike yesterday, I'm not freezing. You know, in Arizona and out west, they say it's a dry heat. You know, it's not as bad. Well, I've been there. I've driven through there. I remember we were traveling when we first came out here in '89. We drove to Georgia. I had a shower. I had longer hair. I opened the front door to the motel and just stood there for about 5 minutes, and the wind blowing in dried my hair. Yeah, dry heat. Well, down here in the south and in the northeast as well, you get a moist cold as opposed to a dry cold, a moist cold, which makes it colder. We know that the air blowing across us has a chill factor. You increase the humidity and it's worse. All right, so much for the weather report. Have you ever thirsted for God or hungered for God? Do you understand? It is something that the Bible talks about, that you hunger and thirst for God. Have you ever really been hungry or thirsty? Okay, well, maybe, most of the people watching this are well off enough that you're not homeless and that you get a regular meal on time. So let's just switch to another way to be hungry and thirsty. Let's say you're dieting or fasting. Now, you can have a water fast and still have liquid. Water is the one thing that you've got to take in, because you can die from not having enough water. You can also die from getting too much water. We have a balance to seek. But if you're fasting and you're hungry and you want to go get something to eat and you know you can't, or you're on a diet because you're trying to lose weight, they got all these shows on saying, you don't have to do anything. Take this pill that's $500 a piece and you'll lose weight. Yeah, I don't know how much paper money weighs, but you're going to lose whatever the weight of a stack of that money is. I wish it was that simple. If you just eat the right foods. Well, we know that we're very obese in this country, and it's part of the plan to destroy us. So hopefully RFK will fix all that. Kennedy is our new health expert. I also want him to go after the COVID people, but did you just hear that they've got a new COVID out that they've just discovered in the same lab in China that is just as bad or worse than the previous one? I don't know if people are going to fall for it again. Okay, so if you've ever been hungry and thirsty, you get the impression, and I hope that you're not like the world. The world hungers and thirsts for God, and they know they've got to satisfy that hunger and thirst. That's why they do drugs and alcohol and other perverse things, trying to find something to satisfy that thirst and hunger. And it never does. It might for a little bit, but then it doesn't satisfy as long. All addictions, it seems like, other than God, never satisfy. So you got to increase the amount. That's why those that are really heavily into drugs, if they don't curb that and get a hold of themselves, they're going to die, because they're going to end up taking an overdose. Because they're going to try more and more and more until they kill themselves, because it's impossible to satisfy what God can give you. Okay. Ever see anybody talking about hunger and thirst? Ever see anybody who's really hungry? And they just sit down and they wolf down their food. It's like, take a breath. You ever see like a dog? You put the food down in front of them and it's like they've never eaten. They may have eaten 2 hours earlier and they're acting like they've never eaten. They wolf it down. Cats don't do that. I can put down 2 or 3 days worth of food and water for a cat, and mine will eat a little bit at a time and not run out. If I put down 2 or 3 days worth of food for a dog, he'll eat it all in one sitting, make himself sick, throw up, and then want more. Well, if you've never seen anybody hungry and eating when they're hungry, I like to use movie references, so we're going to talk about the old man in Groundhog Day. And Groundhog Day is kind of a symbolic representation of our life. We're all jerks at one point in time in our life, and we have to learn not to be. We don't know how many years it took for Groundhog Day, but it literally had to take years. He had to go from not knowing piano to playing in the orchestra at the end. And he had to go from being a jerk in the beginning to being a kind-hearted person, trying to help everybody. That's what God would like us to do, is to follow that path. And it take as long as it takes, but follow that path. So the old man, he first throws some money at him. Isn't that typical? Oh, you're in need. Here's some money. Well, people who have never had money don't know how to handle it. And he might have been like that dog. He'd go buy a whole bunch of food and then be hungry the next day, when he could have just eaten a little bit that day and then eaten a little bit the next day. But since it's Groundhog Day and we get to see him do it over and over again, eventually he takes him into the restaurant and puts some food down in front of him. And the guy's eating it and eating it. And he pushes his bowl over and lets him eat that too. If you're helping feed others, you may not be as hungry, so you don't mind sharing yours. Okay, well, that's what a person who's hungry looks like. And I wish we all could learn from that. So, when we're seeking God's presence, that's our hunger and our thirst. When we're reading the Bible in our prayer time, that's satisfying our hunger and our thirst. For those that desire to be near God, we can't be with God, but we can read his love letters to us. That's the Bible. I've been in the military. I've been away from home. But I didn't have a love at home that I left behind when I was in the Navy. So I never had the experience of getting a love letter, smelling it and smelling the perfume or whatever. You see it. I mean, I've watched enough war pictures to know what that was like. And they did that on a number of episodes in MASH where they did that. I've been on the set of MASH, so. It was a very well-written anti-war picture that I was not offended by, because back then Hollywood knew how to make something that wouldn't offend people. Okay, let's get a couple of psalms in here. Psalms are songs to be sung. So Psalm 42:1, to the chief musician, Mashil, and the son of Korah, As the hart panteth after the water brooks, so panteth my soul for thee, O God. Panting, dry mouth. My soul's thirsted for God, for the living God. When shall I come and appear before God? We all will appear before God. Christians, we have a graduation ceremony. The world has a judgment seat. We have a bema seat. They have a white throne of judgment. Choose wisely. Matthew 5:6, part of the Beatitudes. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. If you want the filling of God, you will get it. The Last Supper, experiencing the filling of God through his blood, the wine, and through his flesh, the bread. Psalm 63:1, a psalm of David. When he was in the wilderness of Judah, O God, thou art my God. Early will I seek thee. My soul thirsteth for thee. My flesh longeth for thee in a dry and thirsty land where no water is. Israel, for the most part, is a desert-type climate. Now, they've reclaimed and they're doing a lot of farming and all kinds of stuff, but it's a desert climate. The nomads, the camel riders going across the desert, camels because they can last for days on whatever water they can soak up into that hump. That's what the hump does. It's a storage for water. In other areas, we just saw where they had a fire down, big fires down in LA, and they didn't have water. Look at pictures. Go look for pictures on Google of Los Angeles or Santa Monica on the coast around 1900. It's sand dunes. Sagebrush or scrub brush on the sand dunes. It's desert. Las Vegas, or Lost Wages, was desert until they reclaimed it. Okay, I'm going to read John, but apparently I cut off the J. So it's on. John 4:5. Then cometh he to a city in Samaria, which is called Shinar, near to the parcel of the ground where Jacob gave to his son Joseph. You know, the family traveling. Now Jacob's well is there. A very well-known well. They worship their forefathers to the point of knowing where the well was built. See, they had to have wells. Why do you have wells? Because you don't have running water. The park that I'm in, we're on city water now. But before that, they've got a well over there. And they've got pumps that pump the water up out of the well and out to the park. But we're on city water now, so well water can have its issues. If you're in an area that's heavily populated, you can have problems. Our river, okay, I'm going off on another tangent. Our river over here, there are fish in it. I won't eat them. And it's not, to me, it's not any fun to just go fish, catch and release. I don't like that. Catch and eat. I love seafood. I love trout, striper, bass, catfish even. But I won't eat these. Why? Because of Atlanta. You think the corruption that we're finding now is only in Washington? It's in all the cities. One of our ladies here that was in charge, I forget her name, she created a foundation, and it got $2 billion from the government. I hope they audit that. But my point on the river is they have a sewage processing plant in Atlanta. It's a big city. It's a big plant. It has problems. It's old. It leaks into the river every year. The Chattahoochee River that goes through town. It leaks sewage into the river. They pay a fine of $1.25 million or whatever it is every year. But that $1.25 million every year is cheaper than the $15 to $20 million that they would have to spend to fix it. So the politicians kick the can down the road by paying the fine. But they dump their sewage in the water, which goes by in this river. By the time it gets here, I'm an hour drive or more away from Atlanta. It's not strong, but it's there. It's the thought. I can't eat things out of that. I moved here from California. I love to be on the coast. I lived in Santa Monica and Hermosa Beach and Manhattan Beach. When I lived in Northern California, I lived along the bay, San Francisco Bay. Beautiful area up there it was, till they destroyed it. But anyhow, I would go fishing out on the pier. I wouldn't fish from the shore. You could, if you want to catch and release, and I've seen people catch everything from the shore, from baby sharks to big fish and everything, but you fish to the end of the pier, and the reason you do that is you want to get the migratory fish that are going back and forth, like the bonita, tuna, and things like that, because they don't live in that water. If you catch a local fish, I didn't believe it when they told me. I took a local fish home just because I was curious. I cut it open. It was black inside. All those chemicals from the city running off into the bay. You want to know what the moon looks like? Go look under the ocean all along the coast of California, and probably on the East Coast too. There's nothing there. Things can't grow there. They can barely live in the water. Okay, so now Jacob's well was there. Jesus, therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour. So, the hot part of the day. So, he's sitting next to a well, the hot part of the day, but he doesn't have anything to pull the water up. The water's down at the bottom of the well. Normally, you have to drop something down there, pull it back up, pour it into a container, and rinse and repeat. They didn't leave a bucket. You bring your own bucket and rope, apparently. There cometh a woman from Samaria to draw water. And Jesus said unto her, Give me a drink, for his disciples were gone away. He could be, I don't want to call this mischievous, but he could do stuff that they would sit there and complain about. You can't help this Samaritan woman. We have the Good Samaritan story because they wouldn't help people from Samaria. They were on the other side of the tracks. Well, this is where they are, in Samaria. He's asking this woman for water because his disciples had gone into town to buy meat. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, How is it thou, being a Jew, is it that obvious? Apparently it is. Askest thou, because Samaria is still part of Israel. You'd think they'd all look the same. I don't know. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, How is it thou, being a Jew, ask a drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? They knew the division that Satan created. They knew all about it. For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. And Jesus answered her and said, If thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, Give me a drink, thou wouldst have asked him, and he would have given thee living water. Living water being the parallel for the Spirit of God. The woman saith to him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence are you getting or hast thou that living water? How are you going to get it? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank hereof, and his children, and his cattle? Yeah, the well would be for everybody. Oh, Kitty's back and he wants to bite, so I'm going to have to show Kitty. Here we go. He's getting big. I think he's full grown. He's close to it. He's almost 6 months old. I've got his appointment to go in a couple of weeks. Oh, he wants to bite. So I have to keep an eye on him because he bites and it goes through my shirt. Yeah, you can bite my shoes all you want. I have my shoes in the bedroom, and he'll come in there and chew on those, but they're leather shoes, so he can chew on those. Okay, getting back to our story. Jesus answered and said unto her, Whosoever drinketh of this water shall never thirst again. Oh, whoever drinks of this water shall thirst again. I got ahead of myself. But whoever drinketh of the water that I shall give shall never thirst, but the water I shall give shall be him a well of water to spring up into everlasting life. That's the Spirit of God. You want exciting spring flowing in a desert area of everlasting life? You got to have the Spirit of God. If you don't have that, then you don't thirst for God. The woman said to him, Give me this water that I thirst not, neither come here to draw. She's there midday. The rest of the women in town would come in the morning when it's cool. She's there midday because she's even ostracized by the town folk. That tells you about her. They knew who she was. She lives in a small town. All these people, the disciples, Jesus, all from small towns. Where I'm living, it's a small town community. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knew Jesus was born without an earthly father. And many of them didn't believe in the truth. Jesus said unto her, Go and call thy husband and come hither. And the woman answered him and said, I have no husband. And Jesus said unto her, Thou hast said well that I have no husband. For thou hast had 5 husbands, and he whom thou hast is not thy husband. So man you're staying with now is not your husband. And that saith thou truly. When she said she had no husband. The woman saith unto him, I perceive that you are a prophet. Not the Son of God, a prophet. The Jews were told to look for the Messiah. And they missed it. Our fathers worship in this mountain, and you say that Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Because he's a prophet, I can ask him questions. Jesus said unto her, Women, believe me, the hour is coming when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet in Jerusalem worship the Father. You worship you know what you know not. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. They were the chosen people, all of them. And he didn't exclude her. He was talking to her when he said Jews. But the hour cometh, and is now, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. Worship from within, as opposed from without. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. The woman saith unto him, I know that the Messiah cometh, which is called Christ. Same word, two different languages. When he is come, he will tell us all things. Jesus said unto her, I that speak unto thee am he. God, it would have been so great to have been alive during that time. They didn't They didn't use their knowledge of the future well. I hope that we're using our knowledge of the future well. We have a rapture coming. And in my next video, we're going to talk about it doesn't feel right now. It's great watching the world domineering force, Babylon the Great, destroyed, at least in our country. It's great watching it taken down a notch, but something doesn't feel right. We'll talk about that in the next video. All right. Keep watching, but keep doing what you're supposed to be doing. Be kind to others. Be kind to yourself. And God will come and get us at some point. Till we meet in the clouds. God bless. Out for my morning drive, checking things. The sun's not quite up yet. We now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guests in here, I think. So we're open. My trailer there in the distance, coming up on it. Struts in my car are making noise. It's on my repair list. They're sealed units and they've gone bad. But anyhow. Speed bumps. There we go. You can kind of see some people, some vehicles down there. I know where to look. You may be able to find them. But the sun will be up here in a little bit. It's still cold. It's like 22 degrees. But it's going to get to 50 or something today. Have a blessed day, everybody.